you created Third Rock Sunblock.
Right.
This is a game changer. Can you tell me why this is special?
I'll try. So basically what we did is we developed a sunblock that would be based in glycerin and not in water. Not necessarily because we intended to do that, but out of necessity. So what happens is every other sunblock, every other sunscreen that's out there is based in oil and water, and water emulsion. And the reason for that is because it's inexpensive. The water's almost free,
right,
even if it's distilled water or deionized water. And the glycerin isn't. And glycerin's actually probably about 10 to 15 times the expense of water. But it's vegetable-based glycerin, and we use it because we have to stabilize our product.
Mm-hmm.
And our product is alkaline, not acidic. So what happens with everybody else's sunblock, everybody else's sunscreen, is when you mix oil and water together, by definition, you're making an acidic product.
Okay.
We needed to stabilize our zinc oxide, which we actually make our own zinc oxide chelate. And the zinc oxide that we make is alkaline based. So to keep it stable, we had to use glycerin rather than oil and water to keep it together. And that makes it a real game changer in terms of a couple of things. One is how it works in terms of blocking UVA, and I guess we'll get into that. And not just UVB, but UVA. UVB is SPF. And also what it does is it changes the feel of the product.
Sure.
It makes, when it goes on your skin, it takes longer to go in, takes longer to penetrate because glycerin is a humectant. And glycerin requires basically that you can pull water into the skin with the glycerin at the same time. That's really what a humectant's all about. Because of that, the product goes on, but it stays on your skin a little bit longer before it actually penetrates into the pores. That again makes it a game changer because it has a different feel, it has a little bit of a different look, and of course at the end of the day what it does is it stays on basically as long as you want it to. What do I mean by that? Well, you can still wash it off. You can still get in the shower and, you know, with soap and water you can get it off your skin. But once it gets into your skin with the humectant, with the glycerin and the zinc oxide chelate, which is alkaline, it has a tendency to cling to your skin and stay in your skin for as long as you really want it to while you're outdoors or in the water. I like to surf, and that's one of the reasons I developed this in the first place. And I can go for a surf session for a couple of hours, come out of the water, and you'll still see a very light, sort of pale, translucent film on your skin.
Sure.
And what that means is it's still working, it's still protecting you,
yep,
specifically from both UVB, which is SPF, and UVA,
right,
which is a lot more important, and people are beginning to realize the benefits of having a UVA protectant product.
So the zinc oxide is special.
Zinc oxide is special.
Your zinc oxide.
Our zinc oxide is special. So what we do is we take not nanograde, but micronized zinc oxide. So it's not nanoparticles, so
yep,
you don't have to worry about that. There's been a lot of controversy about nano, of course, and I've been
right,
involved in that as well. But our product is micronized zinc oxide, which we then chelate. We use a special technique to actually treat the surface of the zinc oxide so that it will be compatible with oil, water, and glycerin. We do have some water in the chelated zinc oxide, and we have glycerin, and we have some oil in the product. Very little oil compared to any other product that's out there. The reason the oils are in there is primarily because it makes the product more like everybody else.
right,
And the oils actually are beneficial because we're using jojoba oil, we're using olive oil, which is virgin olive oil, and we're using a little bit of carrot oil. And what that does is those are good antioxidants as
yep,
well.
Yep.
So
awesome. When it comes to sun exposure, Australia, the country, has been documented to have the most sun cancer diagnoses. In association with that, they also have probably the most sunscreen sales on the planet. Is there a correlation to that? And I just want to pull this little article that I pulled from Rodale Beta, and the topic of this was why sunscreens can't keep you safe. I'm sure you get pummeled with this.
Right.
So there's a phobia in probably the world from, you know, everybody and their mom telling you to stay out of the sun. Right. And there's a bunch of us that know better, right. You know, with vitamin D conversion on the skin and just being smart about it. Right. Your product can help us with that.
Yeah, absolutely. In 1993, I was in Australia, and Australia at that time was famous worldwide because of the ozone hole. Because of that, the Australian government was very concerned about skin cancer, and still remains to be, for a lot of reasons. One is 90% of the population in Australia lives on the coast, and so they're always exposed to the sun. And what happens in Australia, when I was there in '93, and I'm sure it's even more prevalent today, is every half hour on the radio they'll tell you what the sun intensity is, and they'll tell you what the water pollution is all about. So they're very conscious about the fact that their people are getting bombarded by UV rays, yeah, and causing, you know, an epidemic throughout the country. It turns out the epidemic's not just in Australia. The epidemic is in the United States, sure, as well. In the United States, if you live to be 65 years old, there's a 50-50 chance you'll have some form of skin cancer. Right. Could be melanoma, could be carcinoma, could be basal cells, but there's a 50% chance, right, that you'll get skin cancer. So why? Well, obviously people are using more and more sunscreens and sunblocks, but the problem is they're still getting skin cancer. Well, the issue in the United States, and it's not as prevalent in Europe, and maybe a little bit less prevalent in Australia, is that SPF is sun protection factor, and that means it is giving you protection from UVB rays only. Right. UVB rays are not the rays that cause skin cancer. That's a proven, known medical fact. It's UVA which causes DNA damage, right, and DNA damage leads to skin aging.
That's the one that goes deeper.
That's the one that goes deeper, and it's sort of the silent killer. Yeah. And so UVA is what causes DNA damage, and it causes wrinkling and aging, sure, and eventually, because of the DNA damage, it can cause skin cancer.
And the UVB is what converts vitamin D on our skin.
UVB's, right, yeah, UVB is a different UVB has the shorter of the two wavelengths. Shorter wavelengths. And okay, what happens with UVB is that's what causes reddening of the skin. Right. So there's really two issues. SPF, sun protection factor, we have a 34.5, so our product is actually almost 35 SPF. What does that mean? Well, it means that for you and I, Caucasians in general, in about 10 minutes, what happens is your skin, in 10 minutes, your skin will start to turn red in the presence of the sun. Well, if you have an SPF 30, 30 times 10 is 300 minutes. Supposedly, you're going to get 300 minutes of protection from the sun because you're not turning red, you're not, right, burning. Well, that's all good, except for one little problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not getting UVA, right, which is not going to cause skin reddening necessarily, but, right, long-term skin damage. Sure. So what's really happened is the industry's sort of upside down, and the FDA has really emphasized SPF. And as you know, in the last year, there's been a new monograph from the FDA regarding the ability to now have the requirement that if you don't have UVA protection on your product, you have to put a warning on the label. Wow. So everything's changing, but it's, yeah, changed very, very slowly. It took almost 30 years for the FDA to come out with a new monograph. The last one was 1978. Yep. So what's happened in Europe, they understand this issue more than we do in the United States. And in Europe, they've always been conscious about UVA because they understand that UVA is going to cause wrinkling and aging, sure, and skin cancer. In this country, what's happened is you've seen SPF 50s and 75s and 100s. But, yeah, the problem with SPF 50s and 75s and 100s is they'll give you more protection from turning red, but they won't necessarily give you any protection or more protection for UVA, which is what's causing the damage. Absolutely. The other thing about SPF, and this is sort of the really weird thing, is that there are a lot of things that you can put on your skin that will not allow it to turn red. Okay? The problem with that is just turning red alone is probably a good thing because it's telling your body, get the heck out of, sure, the sun, right? So if you put any substance on that will absorb UVB, you will not turn red. And some of those substances have turned out to be toxic substances, which have been used for many, 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 right, years, absolutely, and people haven't realized that they're putting toxins on their skin. Sure. Your skin's your biggest organ. I say, if you can't put it in your mouth, why would you put it on your skin? And absolutely, our product, for sure, is something that you can put into your mouth.